On this Independence Day, I want to focus on what America is and why so many of us are fighting to stop its destruction. And where it is beyond debate that our current government doesn't measure up to and is antithetical to our deeply held American values. It doesn't mean we are devoid of hope or that we can't beat back those dark forces and restore a government of, by, and for our people. America, it's worth fighting for. That's my observation in today's preamble. I'm sure even that expression, fighting for America, will trigger many Marxists out there, where it is true that they believe they can riot, loot, burn, beat people up in pursuit of their destruction of our constitutional republic. They tend to become indignant if patriots express a desire to defend the Constitution and our way of life from their barbarous assault. But in the sea of chaos and darkness dished up by those seeking to fundamentally transform America, there are islands of respite, common sense, and normalcy. Our newly constitutional Supreme Court, for example, just handed down 3 victories for liberty and freedom for all. The first case I'll focus on was the victory for the First Amendment. The Constitutional Court struck down Colorado's attack on our First Amendment by saying the government nor other citizens can force another American to say or write something they don't believe in. ABC News, through the dishonest propaganda agency, the Associated Press, had a left-wing biased take, writing, quote, "In a defeat for gay rights, the Supreme Court's conservative majority ruled on Friday that a Christian graphic artist who wants to design wedding websites can refuse to work with same-sex couples," end quote. That was the first sentence. The woke author crammed many lies into that garbage write-up on this decision. First, it wasn't a defeat for gays. It was a victory for all Americans. If a gay web designer is approached by a client who wants them to make a wedding page that states that only true and real marriage exists out there, only if it's between a man and a woman, now, thanks to conservatives in the high court, that gay web designer can't be forced to undertake such an activity. So far from being a defeat for gay rights, it was a win for every American's right of free speech, which is the only law or decision that is actually valid and consistent with the American Constitution, the expansion of freedom and liberty for all. According to ABC, through the discredited Associated Press, graphic artists can now refuse to work with gay couples. Again, not true. What the High Court did was quash the standard that getting into business means you have to give up your fundamental constitutional rights. If a web designer has a storefront and a gay couple wanted to come in, buy some software, buy some hardware, or a template for a web page, they most certainly can under existing law, and they must be able to do so. This ruling didn't change any of that. All the Supreme Court said is that the government and our fellow citizens can't force you to articulate speech that you don't believe in. As an aside, as we have told you, Americans have got to keep a watchful eye on these biased news operations. They are staffed largely with anti-American Democrats. Case in point, this headline from CBS News on Twitter that claims a new Florida law is controversial. What's the law? It says that Florida will not recognize driver's licenses improperly given to illegal aliens. In other words, the law-breaking illegal aliens will not be made easy in their law-breaking in Florida. To real Americans, that's common sense. To CBS News, that's controversial. The Rapid Response Director for conservative Governor Ron DeSantis blasted the clearly biased headline from CBS saying, quote, "It's not controversial to prohibit illegal aliens from obtaining government documents like driver's licenses while they're here illegally. Try immigrating illegally to a foreign country as an American, then demand a local driver's license. You'll be laughed at, then deported," end quote. She's right. And to the biased left-wing stenographers at CBS News, excluding Catherine Herridge, of course, she is a real journalist. To all of you, I say the idea of giving illegal aliens official U.S. documents as if they were Americans, as if they had a right to come here illegally, as if they have a right to stay here illegally, is the definition of controversial. Another bright spot and a reminder that America is worth saving came when the Constitutional Court struck down Joe Biden's unfair redistribution student loan forgiveness program. This was a win for the rule of law and the American principles of justice and fairness. The idea that Joe Biden and his socialists wanted to charge a guy like me, who paid all of his education debt by working through college, that now those people had to pay for some man-child or woman-child who entered into a contract to get a loan for $100,000 for a useless degree in underwater basket weaving or gender studies, because those leftists didn't think they should have to pay back their debt, that Biden wanted to punish us all with that. It was a slap in the face to all hardworking Americans. Americans work hard, real Americans do, to pay their contractual debts that they knowingly entered into as adults. On the constitutional level, this was also a win. Under our system, only the people's representatives have the power of the purse. Only they, not the executive, can allocate money. In a bold and rare stand for the Constitution, Chief Justice John Roberts invoked none other than Nancy Pelosi, explaining why he voted with the conservative majority on this issue, writing, quote, "As then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi explained, people think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress," end quote. And one more bit of evidence that America isn't beyond saving. As part of the enduring legacy of constitutional conservatism, the majority Constitutional Court struck down another systemically racist institution of the left, affirmative action. Affirmative action allowed, in this case, universities to give preferential treatment to people in admissions based on race and skin color. In so doing, affirmative action discriminated against others based on the color of their skin or ethnicity. It was in-your-face racism, championed by left-wingers in America. MSNBS star Joyless Reed all but admitted that it wasn't merit that got her into Harvard, but that the racist affirmative action, that's what got her in. How many whites, Asians, or Latinos who had higher scores, higher GPAs, and a more well-rounded experience did Joyless Reed displace and cheat out of a coveted slot at Harvard, all because of the color of her skin, not the content of her character? With this ruling, the conservatives on the court fulfilled Dr. King's dream. He said, quote, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." And now all of America's children will have another weapon to beat back Democrat racism, thanks to a constitutional court and thanks to Donald J. Trump. President Trump speaking about this at a recent rally.
We appointed nearly 300 federal judges and 3 great Supreme Court justices. And this week, those justices ruled to move our country forward with a merit-based system of education. How big is that? Isn't that big? Isn't that great? In other words, if you're a worker and you worked very hard in school, you got fantastic marks, somebody that hasn't done nearly as well, who perhaps has not worked nearly as hard, will not be taking your place on a school, college, or at a university. They're not going to be. We're going by merit. We're back to the old merit system that built our country. That was a big one.
It also bears pointing out that this marks the 3rd time in U.S. history that conservatives have rallied to beat back Democrat racism. First, Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, led his party to defeat slavery being pushed by the Democrat-controlled South. Next, a greater percentage of the GOP versus Democrats voted to pass the Civil Rights Act. And now, just in time for the 4th of July, the Democrats' divisive racism has been defeated again. And that is perhaps our greatest threat, isn't it? Disunity. The left will tell us through their propagandists in the media that our differences are what makes America strong. That's a lie. It is our unity that makes us strong. Unity under our flag, our Constitution, the rule of law, and freedom. We Americans universally used to celebrate our freedom of speech. All Americans celebrated our freedom of religion. We celebrated this and the sacrifice and strength of our all-volunteer military. and we celebrated the rule of law and the concept that nobody was above that law, not even Hillary or Hunter or Joe. Our biggest struggle is to reunify this country under the concepts that have made us a kind, just, and prosperous nation. In short, what made America great. Not only do I believe we can do this, we must do this, because our children and the future of this world, this last best hope of mankind, must not be allowed to perish from the face of the earth. Have a blessed Independence Day, one and all.